Hello and welcome to another edition of Long Beach Treasures. I'm your host, Harvey Keller. We're going to continue our tour of the Port of Long Beach, and joining me once again is Stephen Macias. Stephen, I see Sea Launch over here. Tell me about it.
Sure, Harvey. This is a pretty remarkable Long Beach Seaport customer. It's U.S. Sea Launch, and it's a multinational corporation represented by Boeing of the United States, along with Kvarner, a Norwegian shipbuilder, and two rocket makers from the former Soviet Union, Yuzhnoye Yuzhmash out of the Ukraine, and Energia. They're out of Russia. All four entities have combined into Sea Launch, and what they're doing is the final assembly of communication satellites here in Long Beach Harbor. That takes place in that gray and white multi-story structure known as the Payload Processing Facility. They finish the rockets and the satellites, and they are loaded onto the Sea Launch Commander, the vessel you see in front of us there. It serves as mission control, if you will, for these waterborne launches. Sea Launch departs with a crew of about 250 from Long Beach Harbor. The Sea Launch Commander.
250 men?
Or women.
Or crew.
Crew, yeah, that
Wow.
works. And they head south of the Easter Islands to perform these waterborne launches. In fact, before you arrived today, the 20-story launch platform Odyssey departed from the harbor. And they will be performing another waterborne launch very soon.
Tell me, are we anywhere close to what used to be or may still be called the Mole?
In fact, Harvey, Sea Launch does reside on the former Navy Mole in Long Beach Harbor. Yeah, this is all land that we've redeveloped since the closure in 1994 of the Long Beach Naval Station, followed by the closure of the shipyard in 1997.
So this was where the naval base used to be?
Exactly. In fact, again, we still call this the Navy Mole. The land area on the right side of us is the old naval station and shipyard facility. Again, following closure of those facilities by the federal government, there was much public debate, and Long Beach was ultimately named the Reuse Authority. This is former port land that was turned over to the Navy for a naval station in Long Beach. After their departure, the land was returned to the port.
Where the cranes are over there, is that where the Roosevelt Naval Base?
Yeah, the cranes do mark the former naval station and shipyard facility in Long Beach.
So we're in the old
Naval Basin. And again, thanks to a peacetime economy, we've readapted these former naval lands. The leaseholder is Total Terminals International. Primary customer at our Pier T facility is Hanjin Shipping. They're out of South Korea.
Captain, while you're out here, tell me what you do with this. Stephen was saying that you surveyed when the Queen Mary II came in to see if depth was...
Yes, that's correct. About a month prior to the Queen Mary II's arrival, we got a call from the port pilots indicating that they would like to get the Queen Mary II as close to the Queen Mary I as they possibly could to have a ceremony and a salute, a whistle salute. So we went out and we performed a hydrographic survey of the bottom, which we basically determine the depths, and then we create what's called bathymetric maps, and we provide those maps to the ship captains. We provide that information to NOAA as well, but we gave that information to our port pilots, and then they were able then to determine, based on the draft of the Queen Mary II, bring the ship in as close as they could possibly get her, and then they were able to have their ceremony.
What other kinds of surveying do you do?
Well, our primary function is condition and dredge payment surveys, which dredge payment contract compliance, would mean that when we hire a contractor to do dredging, we will do a pre-dredge and then a post-dredge, and we calculate volume of dredge material, and the contractor gets paid based on that figure.
We haven't talked about it yet, but do you do something with checking on the subsidence also?
Actually, our port surveyors do, and that's what we are. We're surveyors, land surveyors by profession, and for me, part of my function is state law mandates that hydrographic surveying be done by a licensed land surveyor. But some of our landside surveyors do the subsidence surveys and have done them for years. And so back in I believe the 40s, on Terminal Island, which is where what we would call our subsidence bowl. That's where the greatest portion of subsidence happened. My understanding is it subsided about 30 feet there. And it wasn't so much that the land just collapsed straight down. It was more like a drain, like your kitchen sink. If you were to pull your kitchen sink drain, all of the land kind of moved horizontally as well as vertically and subsided. So it was gradually less subsidence the further away we got from the subsidence bowl.
So they keep you busy?
Yes, they keep us extremely busy.
And you work for the port itself?
Yes, I am a port employee.
Thanks, Captain.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Stephen. Don't go away. Now, do we still have a subsidence problem here in Long Beach?
Actually, as Pete mentioned, our port engineers do continue to monitor the subsidence issue. There's very, very little. Oil was discovered in Long Beach Harbor in the 1930s, and that oil was extracted at great rates. In fact, you still see elements of oil extraction throughout the harbor today. By about the 50s, the subsidence problem had become very, very dramatic in the North Harbor area. As Pete mentioned, it was then that scientists determined if you were going to continue to extract oil, you had to inject these wells with salt water. And again, thanks to improved technologies, we're able to monitor that subsidence, but it still poses a bit of a challenge for us
Well,
today.
I have it in my line of sight. That's the Gerald Desmond Bridge. Am
That's
I correct?
right.
Now, is that going to be replaced?
My fingers are crossed. We are looking to replace that bridge, right. It was completed in 1968. It was never intended to handle the volume of cargo. Approximately 15% of this nation's waterborne trade touches that bridge. So we see a critical need.
Do you need to raise the bridge?
The bridge needs to be raised, it needs to be widened, yes. Both are important factors there.
And the basin over here is?
Again, this is our PRT facility directly in front of us. You're also looking at Long Beach Container Terminal, the facility with the red and white striped gantry cranes.
Oh, these are gantry cranes just like the white ones, except they're red?
Exactly. Hanjin's color is Hanjin blue, but they also like red cranes. Again, we're a landlord port, and we build to suit the customer's needs. That PRT facility is home to 14 gantry cranes. They were purchased in the early, I want to say in the early 21st century. We went out to bid. Again, ZPMC was awarded that bid. We bought 20 cranes, and when you buy them in bulk that way, you get a discount price of about $7 million a crane.
I was going to ask you, do you have any idea what a crane would cost? $7 million.
When you buy them 20 at a time, Harvey.
Wow. It's a few bucks you have invested there.
Quite a few bucks.
Right.
In fact, that's a state mandate. All seaports in the state of California operate in trust for the state of California. The state mandates that we only divert funds to 4 areas: commerce, navigation, marine recreation, and hatcheries. So building these cargo facilities for our customers promotes commerce in the state of California, and thus an allowable use of port funds.
You know, there's talk of building an LNG terminal. If they did, where would it be located?
That facility would be sited here at Pier T.
Right in here?
Which is right in this area, right. But again, there has been no determination made on that facility.
But if it would be built, it would be in this area.
Correct.
That's awfully close to downtown. Well, we won't go there.
Thanks, Harvey.
I don't want to put you on the spot there, Stephen. Is this the biggest part of the port, Pier T?
Pier T is our single largest container facility, right. At full build-out, it'll be just under 400 acres.
How many lessees do you have?
We have 7 container terminals at present. And thus far, the focus of our tour has been on container facilities. But as you see with the Sea Launch facility, Harvey, we're a multi-service seaport. We handle a variety of cargoes. We have petroleum, we have cement, we have lumber, automobiles. Just about everything under the sun is handled at the seaport in Long Beach.
Now, when we talked earlier last time about you're owned by the city of Long Beach but operate independently. Does any of the revenue that you generate here at the port go to the city?
Yes, our city charter in Long Beach allows for the council to request a 10% transfer. This year, we transferred over $14 million to the city's Tidelands Fund. Again, the state mandates that port monies only be utilized in the city's Tidelands area, so the city can use that money to enhance its waterfront.
But not in the general fund usage?
No, that's a state provision that it only be used in the Tidelands
So
area.
they could use it for lifeguard services?
Beach sand replenishment, a lot of uses for the waterfront, but those funds are designated Tidelands funds specifically.
That must come in handy once a year to get a nice check like that.
I would think so. We also reimburse the city for city-provided services. Our paychecks come from City Hall, and we reimburse the city for payroll, fire and police protection, as well as legal services.
You don't have your own fire department and police department?
No, we utilize the fine men and women from Long Beach Fire as well as Long Beach Police to augment our own harbor patrol officers.
What's behind the seawall here?
That is a facility that's used primarily for lumber these days.
Storage?
Right. We have 2 lumber facilities, 2 lumber terminals. Lumber comes primarily from the Pacific Northwest, and it's used in the Southlands construction industry.
What, the orange structures over there, are those cranes again?
Yeah, more gantry cranes. Again, in the colors that customer, it's their brand, if you will. Long Beach Container Terminal, LBCT, is home to Orient Overseas Container Line, OOCL. We have an awful lot of acronyms here, Harvey, but they're a carrier out of Hong Kong. They first started calling Long Beach in 1969.
Is there anywhere you can look in the port of Long Beach and not see a gantry crane?
Yeah, there are a lot of places you can look in our harbor. There are no gantry cranes at the lumber facilities, no gantry cranes at our petroleum facilities, nor at our cement facilities. Bulk cargoes don't require gantry cranes. Gantries are used primarily for containerized cargo.
Who is your largest lessee?
That would be Total Terminals International, the terminal we just passed, at just under 400 acres.
And they're out of where?
TTI is U.S. labor. It is a consortium. Again, Total Terminals International is Metropolitan. MTC, again, more of those acronyms, Harvey, representing waterfront labor, along with Hanjin Shipping out of South Korea.
You get a lot of imports from Taiwan, too, do you not?
Yeah. Again, Asia accounts for 90% of this port's trade.
I'm going to assume, since we're a West Coast port, that most of the Asian market comes into Los Angeles and Long Beach.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Although there are some carriers that recognize the need for 2 points of entry into the U.S. markets. So there are carriers who leave Asia, utilize the Suez Canal to hit the U.S. East Coast. but this is a much quicker all-water route, making the Pacific the ocean of choice.
Is the Asian market still increasing in size?
It's amazing. We have a weakened dollar against Asian currencies right now, and in our last calendar year we saw another surge in imports from Asia.
They just keep coming.
They just keep coming because we keep asking for it.
Well, now, is this a container ship?
Actually, no, that's our BP facility. This is a petroleum terminal.
Oh, there's the lumber.
There's the lumber, that's right. That's the way it comes into us from the Pacific Northwest. But the interesting thing about our BP facility is that this will be our first facility to utilize shoreside power. Right now, these ships have to run their engines while they're discharging cargo. Within the next year or so, this vessel will be able to plug into shoreside power, turning off its engines, reducing its emissions, and doing a lot for the environment.
Did you say this was an oil vessel?
It's an oil tanker, right?
Okay. Are they loading oil from the Long Beach area here?
Actually, it's carrying crude primarily from the North Slope in Alaska. It's a 6-day coastwise voyage from Alaska to Long Beach. Oil, the crude, then travels via pipeline to nearby Carson, where it's refined and delivered to us in about 2 or 3 days. This vessel is fairly empty. It's sitting so high in the water. When the vessel arrives, all you would see of it is the black part upward. The red part of the ship would be underwater, if you will, again indicating that it's full of product.
That's a good size ship also.
It's about 1,000 feet in length. Yeah, these are truly remarkable tankers.
Looks like a little scuba boat.
Actually, that's a lifeboat, and different than lifeboats that we may remember from luxury vessels of the 30s and 40s. Not that you and I would remember those, Harvey. But, of course, they want crews to be maintained in safety, so they are covered by vessels. Over on the right, this is a cement facility. This one's operated by Cemex. That's Cementos Mexicanos. Mexico is just one of the places in the world that cement comes from. And again, we use cement throughout Southern California for the local construction industry. Not a glamorous product, but again, a major U.S. export. Over on the left-hand side, you're looking at old Oldsmobiles in your old dishwasher, Harvey.
Junk.
It's junk, it's scrap metal, but we're a nation of recyclers. It comes to the harbor, it's sorted, it heads primarily to Asia, Korea specifically. They reprocess it and then send it back to us in the form of new consumer goods.
Toyotas.
Toyotas and refrigerators and dishwashers and microwave ovens, yeah. But again, the importance is that nothing is thrown away these days. We recycle, even scrap metal.
The crane there, it looked like that would be a magnet on the bottom.
It's a scoop. It's a great big scoop, if you will, yeah. And, oh, you're right, they are... Harvey, you got me, because that is a new crane there. Yeah, there's a smaller crane in operation that's the old scoop. You see that?
See that between.
Yeah, exactly.
Boy, that's a lot of scrap metal.
It's a lot of scrap metal, but again, there's a lot of construction going on in Southern California. And you tear down a building, with any luck, those girders end up on our docks and then off across the Pacific again.
What's at Pier D here?
Pier D is really a mixed-use facility. It has row-row capabilities, roll-on, roll-off. We have liquid cargoes such as vegetable tallow, along with the cement, steel products, and containers.
Looks vacant.
Well, that's an old transit shed, Harvey, and transit sheds are really a thing of the past. In the 1940s, Long Beach Harbor earned the distinction of being America's most modern port because we had transit sheds and warehouses for a lot of these commodities. With the advent of containerization, however, you no longer need the warehouses.
Now, believe we're coming up to under the Gerald Desmond Bridge.
We
right?
are approaching the Desmond Bridge, right.
And the Vincent Thomas is much higher than this one.
The
right?
Vincent Thomas is much higher. I believe it's 20 feet taller, and I'd have to check those figures for you. But, and its span is much greater. So the rise is gentler, and their channel is wider at that point. So LA, the Port of Los Angeles, and the city of San Pedro don't face the same challenges we have here.
Do all of these ships, when they come in, need a tugboat?
A lot of them do, yeah. In fact,
It's not
tugboats.
required?
Well, some of these larger ships are self-propelled, but tugboats really have an important function in the harbor. Not only do they push and nudge ships into their wharves, but they also help slow them down. So yeah, you will see tugs attached to most vessels transiting in or out of Long Beach.
You really get a view of the scrap metal lid.
That's
don't
right,
ya?
that's right. That's some scrap
Wow.
heap. And again, lumber. Lumber was the first cargo into Long Beach back in 1911. A lumber schooner, the SS Iaqua, made its first call in June of 1911.
I believe Adelaide Tishner's husband made his fortune in lumber.
And I would defer to you on that one.
I may be wrong, but that's what I had heard somewhere along the line.
Who was Gerald Desmond?
Well, I don't know. There was a Desmond department store.
Gerald Desmond was a former city prosecutor.
Oh.
And
Wasn't there a Desmond's department store?
yes, there was a Desmond's, but I don't know if there was a connection there. The bridge was named after the former city prosecutor.
So if it's rebuilt, would it still keep the same name?
I'm not sure, Harvey. We might want to call it
Or
the Harvey Keller Bridge.
Right, that'll be the day.
And as Pete was mentioning earlier, there you can see remnants of, oh, there's a sea lion frolicking. I told you we'd see one sooner or later.
It probably got loose from the aquarium.
Well, no, Harvey, we have our own band of sea lions here. But there is the old Edison steam generating plant, and again, a very visible reminder of subsidence.
Yeah, that's one
In
of
the
the
old
major
harbor.
places of subsidence.
Yeah, as Pete mentioned, 25 to 30 feet in this North Harbor area.
I had heard, I don't know if it's true, that in the old Buffin's department store, they could no longer use the elevators because of the subsidence. The elevator doors wouldn't close.
In downtown Long Beach.
Uh-huh.
I'd never heard
By
that.
the way, what are the nets under the bridge? Is that in case somebody jumps or something?
Actually, those nets are there to hold chunks of concrete
Oh.
from falling.
The bridge is falling apart?
Well, it's structurally sound, but again, the nets are there because concrete chunks also fall. And as we saw earlier, Matson Shipping, again, one of the last remaining U.S. flagged carriers.
Do they still have liners, luxury liners? passenger
No,
liners?
actually, they no longer operate passenger ships. It's strictly cargo. Longtime Long Beach residents may recall the old Procter & Gamble plant.
Uh-huh.
In 1990s, the Port of Long Beach redeveloped the old Procter & Gamble plant, turned it into this 60-acre container facility.
Are there any cruise lines that go from the West Coast to Hawaii?
There are, and I believe they all depart out of the Port of Los Angeles. The only cruise carrier we have out of Long Beach is Carnival Cruises, and they depart from the terminal adjacent to the Queen Mary.
By the dome, the...
Right, the former Spruce Goose
Right.
Dome. It's been retrofit to now handle passenger cargo.
Boy, everywhere you look, just stacks and stacks and stacks of containers.
Yeah, multicolored boxes, cargo containers, and again, a world of opportunities for consumers of the United States. This inner harbor area, again, historically, was the site of the old Ford plant. Remember, Henry
That's right.
Ford came to Long Beach in 1929, manufactured automobiles here for about 30 years.
You know, this has really been interesting, and I know at times you do public tours.
Yeah, we do.
Do you
We'd
have
like
any
to.
coming up that you might want?
Harvey, we have a great season of cruises for the Long Beach community. We run these cruises May through October, the first and third Saturday of every month, as well as the second Tuesday. With a few exceptions, we won't operate the Saturday departures during holiday weekends this summer.
Reservations required?
Reservations are required. We're going to direct your viewers to the Port of Long Beach website at polb.com. Beginning in April, we'll run notices on our community cruise program, and thanks for mentioning that.
Stephen, we're almost out of time. I again want to thank you for being my tour guide today, because this has really been a most interesting visit, and I'm just amazed at what you see down here in the port and how busy it is. There's just not a dull moment. Everything is moving.
Well, Harvey, it's been a long time in planning this special harbor cruise for Long Beach Treasures, and we're glad that you joined us today. The weather cooperated. Everything's been perfect today. Thanks again for asking to
My
visit
pleasure.
the port.
Once again, Stephen, thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. This
It's been
is
a
great.
pleasure.
Thank you.
And that's our show for this time. Be sure and join us again next time as we take another walk through history and uncover more Long Beach treasures.